Sound check, test 1, 2. Mm. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, we're good to go over here. Good over here. Good over here. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yes. We up over here. Let's make sure this is in. In, we are in over here. We're good over here. Good over here on YouTube. Good on Instagram. Good on. We good on TikTok. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great start to your Friday. I got to do one more thing. Let me put the shade down. This is hot. Okay, now we're good to go. Now we are good. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. Y'all know what the topic is. I think I told y'all we were going to talk about this here today. It was pending. We were looking to see if any the current event that is being watched right now, which is that trial up in New York with Daniel Penny, if they had a verdict sometime between yesterday and now, then we would have talked about that. But no verdict has come in, at least not the last that I checked. I'll look right now and see if anything came in. If it did, then no, it doesn't look like. No, they didn't do it yet. So they didn't give the verdict yet. Maybe there'll be one over between today and Monday. If they do that, then we'll talk about it on Monday. Prudence Parlay, good morning over there on Instagram, YouTube. I think y'all can see and hear me here today. Yesterday, I did the whole live, and I was looking at YouTube. And I'm like, why is YouTube not showing me any data whatsoever? It turns out that the stream was set for private. I don't know how. So sorry, YouTube, y'all missed that one yesterday, but you can catch the replay for what I did yesterday. So what we're going to talk about here today is criminal justice reform, or we have a question mark there because do we actually need to reform the criminal justice system? Well, we're going to talk about that here today. We're going to discuss it, and we will all decide. And of course, I'm going to share my perspectives. You can share yours in the comments while I'm talking. If you're on TikTok specifically, because TikTok tends to show me a lot of notifications while I'm talking. So if you post a comment while I'm talking, I'm not going to see it. But if you want me to see it, you might wait till I'm finished with everything and I start actually looking at the comments. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books, done 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do over here is we help people perform at their highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. So we work with entrepreneurs, sales teams, people transitioning into entrepreneurship, whether from the government, from the military, from corporate, from the sports world. And if you ask anyone who works with me, Dre, what do you like best about working with Dre? And in the university, people say, Dre, you get straight to the point. You're no fluff, no BS, just real talk. So if any of you likes that kind of conversation and that type of communication style, take a look at Work on Your Game University. That link is in my bio and whatever app you're watching me on, or you just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Now, that out the way, let's get into the topic here. So when it comes to criminal justice reform, let me see what I have here. I want to talk about this from kind of 2 different angles, but it all goes to the same topic. And I've got a lot on each of these points. So I got 6 total that I'm going to get through. And first, we're going to talk about first we're going to start with some truths about the justice system so that everybody understands how the justice system works. Some of you already understand these things and agree with them. Some of you have never thought about these and you may not agree. It's completely okay. Even if you disagree, that's completely fine. And we're going to talk about it here today. So let's get right into it. So this is a topic that when it came to criminal justice is something that I decided to talk about with audiences of mine, whether it be you all watching me live or on my show. I got a show called Work on Your Game, comes out every single day on Apple, Spotify, on your favorite podcasting apps. I generally talk about evergreen topics over there like mindset, business development, entrepreneurship, discipline, performance, things like that. But every now and then I will touch on a social, I guess you can call it a social issue or a current event. And this is a social issue / current event because people are always talking about criminal justice reform, especially when there's some type of high profile situation where people are going to court. And especially if it's a situation between two people of different races. And especially if it's a person who happens to be black. We know that this is how it is. This is how it is in America, period. So I just want to make sure I'm on the record because we've had some landmark cases in America. Like all of you know the O.J. Simpson case. Many people believe he was guilty, but he was found innocent in court. And it's like a running joke with O.J., right? There's a running joke that most people say, well, not most people, but a lot of people say they believe he did it and he got away with it, where other people say, well, he didn't do it because he got found innocent. So what I'm going to do, that right there is enough of a basis that when it comes to what the prosecution did there, what the entire state did, state of California against him, just because the court says something does not mean it's actually true. Now, and just because the court says something does not mean it's false either. So that's why we got to talk about it, because if it was that simple, then I wouldn't need to do a whole live stream. I'll just post a tweet and it'd be over. So let's start right here. Sugar, good morning. She said, I'm here for this topic. What's the difference between what is fair and what is equal? Well, that's an interesting question. Those are two. First of all, the word fair is a very subjective term. So I'm glad you put that word in there because it's a subjective term. What I decided is fair and what you decided is fair are two different things. And it depends on the power that you have to enforce the fairness that you believe in. Because fairness could be, I get 80% of the resources, you get 20%. And if I got the power to enforce that, then that's what it is. And if I don't have the power to enforce it, then it doesn't really matter if I think fair should be 50-50. So glad you asked that question, but I'll get into more detail. Let me get into my points and I'll answer questions at the end. So point number one, the legal system in America is not based on innocence or guilt. All right, is this news to any of you? Any of you who didn't know, good morning, newsflash. The legal system in America is not based on being innocent or being guilty, which means if you end up in the court system for whatever reason, this could be the civil court system, but I'm specifically talking about the criminal court system. The civil court system is applies as well. We were talking about that a lot over the last 2 days. But if you end up in the criminal court system, whether you get found innocent or guilty is not solely based on whether you actually did the thing you're accused of or if you did not do the thing that you're accused of. Now, again, if you get found guilty and you actually did it, that doesn't mean that they're lying. If you get found innocent and you didn't do it, that doesn't mean that you got away with something that you didn't do. The point being that the whole system is not based on that, even though the premise of the system is supposed to find whether someone actually did something or they didn't do it. Because the kind of the logo of the justice system is the woman holding the scales and she has a blindfold on. So the justice system is supposed to be blind. It's just supposed to weigh innocence versus guilt. But we know that that's not the way the system works. The system in America is based on whether you have the resources to prove whatever you're accusing against the other person. This is the reason why any of you know that if you end up going to federal court in the United States of America, that the federal court system has a very high conviction rate. In other words, you end up going to trial against the United States government, not the state level, but the government level, the federal government level. There's a very high chance that you are going to lose that case. So if someone ends up beating a federal case, is a big deal because it rarely happens. The reason why it rarely happens is because the federal government has as much resources as it wants to have to fight against you, to try to prove your guilt. They have unlimited resources, which might be more than the resources that you have. So that's the reason why they usually win, because they have resources. They have all these lawyers. They can do all this investigating. They can go into any aspect or detail of your life. And usually when you can come up with that kind of resources, you usually get what you want. And this is the reason why the system in America is about your resources, because you look at something like the O.J. Simpson case, which we'll use as a frame here because everybody has an opinion on the O.J. case. Everybody knows about it. The reason O.J. Simpson One of the main reasons O.J. Simpson got found innocent, in addition to whatever you want to say about the prosecution, about the case, whether you think he was actually innocent or guilty or not, all of those things, or the bloody glove and all of that stuff, whether cops were racist, whatever. One of the biggest reasons he got found not guilty is because he could afford, or he had, let's just say he had, a very powerful lawyer team. So we know he had Johnny Cochran, he had Robert Shapiro, he had F. Lee Bailey, he had Rob Kardashian. He had all of these really, really good lawyers all on his team to help defend him. And he needed all of that to overcome everything that was being put up against him. He needed all of it in order to make that work. Now, if OJ had had a public defender, he probably would have got found guilty, regardless of the facts. This is the whole point, because in the court system, it's not always about the facts. It kind of is, but it's kind of not, because it's about which facts can you get presented in court. Because any of you who follows the court system or knows anything about it, you know that just because you have a fact does not mean you can present it to the jury. It doesn't mean you can present it as part of the case. There are facts that get left out of cases because the judge says you cannot include that as part of the evidence in this case. You can't use that as part of the defense. You can't use that as part of the prosecution. That situation up in Minneapolis that we talked about a few weeks ago, that case, there were certain facts or evidence, let's just say, that the defense for that police officer, Mr. Chauvin, they wanted to use that in court. And the judge said, you cannot use this evidence in court. They were literally told you cannot use that in court. And this happens on the other side as well. The prosecution wants to present certain evidence and the judge says, no, you can't use that for whatever reason. The whole point is, if you have really good lawyers, they're good at making sure all the evidence that they want to use gets presented. And if your lawyers are not that good, then they may have some evidence that they want to present that they do not get allowed to present, which might hurt your chances of winning your case. The point being, the quality of your lawyer is usually based on a simple premise that all of you are familiar with. You get what you pay for. All right. O.J. Simpson got found not guilty because he had some really, really good lawyers who cost a lot of money. And that's the reason why he was able to beat his case. And this is the reason why many people who are well known and known for, publicly noted for their resources, are able to fight court cases, because they have the lawyers to fight. And this is the reason why corporations, it's hard to go up against a corporation. It's hard to sue a corporation. Like, you don't want to sue Apple. You don't want to sue Google. You don't want to sue Microsoft, because they have the resources to hire a whole bunch of lawyers to keep dragging you back and forth to court forever, to the point that you're paying for lawyers so much that you run out of money before you get a chance to even prove that they did something wrong to you. It's not about whether they're right or wrong. They have the resources to fight you to the point, and they'll just keep dragging it out. It's not even that they necessarily think that they're not guilty. So let's just say, let's use an example. So let's say you decide you want to sue Apple or Microsoft for whatever reason. You want to take them to court because you think they did something wrong to you. So you file a lawsuit against Apple. Apple's going to call their lawyers, like the people who work at the top of Apple don't even know that you exist. They got a team of lawyers who are already on retainer that they pay to work for them all day, every day. And anytime somebody tries to throw a lawsuit at them, the lawyers just go fight. So the lawyers are just going to go into court and they're going to file injunctions and paperwork. And the whole point is just drag out the process. This is what they'll do. They drag out the process, because the longer the process drags out, the more you, needing a lawyer, has to keep paying your lawyer. And Apple is just playing a game. This is just a war of attrition. They know that they have more money in their bank account than you probably have in your bank account, which means if they keep bringing you back and forth to court, Apple can keep paying those lawyers. How long can you keep paying your lawyer? Eventually, you're going to run out of money to keep paying your lawyer. Your lawyer is going to decide they don't want to fight anymore. And boom, your case is over. Game over. It's done. Now, there are some instances, we talked about this yesterday, where maybe if you have a solid claim, that the lawyer that's representing you might be able to go to the other lawyers, if there's a good relationship there, and work out a settlement. So now you can get paid off. Apple will make you go away, so nobody has to keep going back and forth to court. Because even though Apple has a ton of money, it's not like they just throw money away. They didn't get there by throwing it away. So they're still smart with what they have. The point being, this is all about resources, folks. This is why I said this yesterday. I'll say it again to you all today. If you do not have a lot of financial resources, whatever you consider to be a lot, don't find yourself within the criminal justice system. Don't get into the legal system in any way where you are defending yourself. Why? Because your ability to prove your innocence is based on if you can afford a lawyer who's good enough to prove your innocence, not about what you actually have to say. Can you afford a lawyer who's good enough to defend you and keep you out of the system, whatever that system may be? So again, think about, O.J. Simpson is a great example of this. You think about other people, a couple guys whose names I'm not going to say. So you got the this bald-headed, chubby white guy whose initials are AJ. He got sued recently over some things that he said about a school situation for years ago. That guy AJ, somebody put his name in the comments, so I know that y'all know who I'm talking about. That guy, can't say his name, but one of the things that he would need is some really good lawyers to defend himself in court. What's going on, Brittany? Good morning. Good to see you over here. The rapper from Chicago, whose initials are KW. I'm not sure I can say his name on here, but that guy, all right, if he ends up in court, these people have the resources to defend themselves. All right, that's the whole point. But if you're some person making $50K a year and you do the same things that, let's say, Mr. AJ or Mr. KW does, what can you do to defend yourself if people decide to come after you? You might not be able to do much. Now, the good news is you might not have anybody coming after you because you may not be notable enough that people even found out what you said and they come to attack you. But the United States of America, I said this before, is the most litigious society in the world. That's not I'm not speaking hyperbolically. That's literally the case. There are more lawyers in America than there are in any other country. There are more lawsuits filed in the United States of America than there is in any other country. And I'm not sure this is a statistical fact, but somebody can confirm it. One of you probably knows. I believe there are more people incarcerated in the United States than there are in any other country in the world. That might not be true, but somebody can let me know if that one's true or not. But the other two are absolutely true. There are more lawyers and there are more lawsuits that get filed because the United States of America, the burden of proof or the bar that you have to clear in order to file a lawsuit in America is super low, which means anybody can sue anybody. And this is what I was talking about. Yes, that's true. Lucky Monkey, you got it right. I got it right. So in the United States, I can sue you. I don't have to know you. I can sue you for any reason that I want. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to win. Doesn't mean it's going to go to court. Not a lawyer, but a judge can throw my case out on the grounds that there's no reason for a case here, but I can file the lawsuit. So I bring that up to remind you all that just because somebody gets a lawsuit filed against them does not prove anything. It just proves that somebody filed a lawsuit. And in America, it is very easy to file a lawsuit. All you got to do is find a lawyer who knows how to go through the paperwork process of filing a lawsuit. And you got to convince that lawyer that you have a good enough reason to sue this person to where you might win. Because the only reason the lawyer is going to take your case, they think you can win. They don't think you can win and not taking the case. So if you can convince a lawyer to take your case and they know how to do the paperwork, boom, you got a lawsuit. Does that mean that anybody is guilty of anything? Hell no, it doesn't mean anything. That's not proof of anything just because a lawsuit got filed. So when you come up and you hear a name of a person that maybe you like or a person who maybe you don't like, and you want to come up with justifying reasons for liking or let's say disliking that person, the fact that they had a lawsuit filed against them does not mean anything. This applies to businesses the same way it applies to people. So if you go hear of a business today, and a lot of people do this, they hear of some business that they never heard of before, then they go on Google and they look up the business, and then they see that, well, this business has had 5 lawsuits filed against them in the last 5 years. That doesn't prove anything. That's not research. That's not enough information from which to draw a conclusion. Can't draw a conclusion that a business is bad because they got sued 5 times in the last 5 years. So what if they got sued? I could sue that. I could sue your business right now today. Does that mean that your business is a scam? Does it mean that you're lying to me? Does it mean that you stole something from me? Doesn't prove anything. So I'm saying all that to help you all understand. First of all, I want you to be logical thinkers and rational thinkers and stop getting fooled by nonsense. And secondly, understand that the United States system, the way the legal system is set up, is that this is all about what resources you have. And if someone wants to come after your resources, especially if you are publicly noted for having them, you will get sued. All right, this is a guarantee. So if any of you becomes a centimillionaire, that means you're worth $100 million or more, and the public knows about it, I guarantee you're going to get sued. Guaranteed. That's not a theory. It's not a opinion. Guaranteed you're going to get sued. Why? Because people know you have money, and it doesn't even matter how you got the money. All right, somebody's going to sue you. All right, you can win the lottery. All right, and somebody's going to find a reason to sue you. Someone's going to find an excuse to sue you. I guarantee it. This is the way America works, and this is just the trade-off of the system. And I'm going to take questions and comments at the end, by the way, anybody leaving anything. Point number 2, we're talking here today about the criminal justice system. First, we're just establishing some baselines about it. Then I'm going to talk about the quote unquote reforms that people talk about. Second point is this. If you don't have resources, as I just said, and you are not willing or wanting to do time in the penitentiary, do not do anything that makes don't break the law, first of all, and or do not do anything that will make anyone even think that you broke the law. Now, this one is a little bit of a tongue in cheek, but all of you get the point. Most of you operate on a daily basis. You don't do anything that breaks the law, and you don't do anything that would make anyone even think that you broke the law. This is the reason why you stay out of the system. You don't want to be in the system. Even if you have money, you don't want to be in the system, because then your money is going to pay lawyers. So you can use that money for something else. You can use it for your kids. You can go on vacation. You can buy a car. You can make an investment. You can have a good Christmas. But if you got to use the money on the lawyers, now that money's gone, and it's going in the lawyers' pockets. So don't hang with anybody who's doing anything that is either breaking the law or would cause them to be under the suspicion of breaking the law, because we know the law of association, like things that other people that you're hanging with do will also rub off on you. So I talked about this maybe a week or two ago. Any of you familiar with the Khalif Browder story? Are y'all familiar with this guy? If you've been watching my lives consistently, you heard me talk about it. But has any of you seen the documentary on Netflix of this kid? His name is Khalif Browder. If you haven't, you need to go on Netflix and watch this. Most of y'all got a Netflix account, right? Go watch this documentary. His name is Khalif Browder, and the documentary is named after him. So here's what happened with Khalif. So Khalif was a kid living in, what's going on, TJ, over there on YouTube? Khalif was living in New York. I forget what borough of New York. Doesn't matter. Young black kid living in New York. He was 16 years of age. He's hanging out with his friends at like 2 a.m. And they are whatever it is that they're doing out in the streets. And Khalif, admittedly, he said this in the documentary, that he and his friends sometimes would do some stuff that they probably shouldn't have done. But that night, they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just out, 4 young black kids just walking around doing stuff. A cop car pulls up to them. There's a guy in the back of the cop car who's claiming that he got robbed. He was an immigrant. And he pointed out Khalif as the guy who robbed him. Now, again, 2 o'clock in the morning, he says, I got robbed, and that guy did it. So the cops go grab Khalif and say, hey, you're suspected of a robbery. They take him to jail because he's suspected of a robbery. And the neighborhood he comes from, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So some of you live in places where that doesn't even seem plausible. It's plausible. Depending on where you live, this happens all the time. Any people listening to this co-sign that, please let them know in the comments. So he gets taken to jail. Now he gets in front of the judge, and well, actually, first of all, when you get taken to jail like that, you get offered, you can bail yourself out. Now you come up with some cash, you can bail yourself out. His bail was set at $1,000. In other words, long story short, keep this very simple. If he comes up with $1,000 in cash, he gives that money to the court. And with that money is basically held as collateral. You can get out of jail. And then when it's time for your court date, you come back to court and we'll hold the money as basically to weigh against you showing up. You don't show up to court, then we keep your money. You come to court, then you might get your money back. So the bail is $1,000. That's all he needs to get out of jail. Problem is, he's only 16. First of all, he doesn't have $1,000, but he has a mom. He has siblings, and all of his mom, his dad, and his siblings are all grown. Now, his dad, he's estranged from. He doesn't have a relationship with his dad. So his dad probably had access to the money, but his dad, they weren't able to get in touch with him. But his mom and his siblings, he had either three or four siblings. They're all adults. He's 16, but his siblings are all like in their 20s and 30s. Between all of them put together, they cannot come up with $1,000. They did not have the money. So he can't bail himself out of jail because he don't have the money. He cannot afford to get out of jail. Even though at this point he's only suspected of robbing somebody. There's no proof. He hasn't gone to court yet. Only thing is he was suspected of robbing somebody, but he doesn't have the money, so he has to stay in jail. Now, what happens is before his fingerprints come back, because this before it was, nowadays is like digital, but back then it was manual. So your fingerprints coming back took a couple of days. After a few days, it took maybe a week or so, his family was able to come up with the money. This is all in the Netflix documentary, by the way. And I suggest that all of you watch this documentary so you can get the details of all of this. So his family does come up with the money after like a week, right? They got $1,000 between like 4 or 5 adults that come up with $1,000. But by the time they come up with $1,000, he can't bail himself out anymore because his fingerprints had come back from like the testing, whatever they call it. And because he had priors on his record, he was not allowed to bail himself out. So basically they said, no, you can't bail out. You got to stay in jail. So he stays in jail, and then he finally gets in front of a judge. Now, when you get in front of a judge on a charge like this, so those of you who don't know how the system works, the judge offers you what they call a plea deal. A plea deal is basically you plead, let's just say, guilty to the crime that they're accusing you of. And by pleading guilty to the crime, they give you leniency. You basically get something on your record that says you pleaded guilty to this crime, but you might get something like probation. You don't have to do any jail time, and you get to go home. Like that day, you get to go home. And the judge offers him the plea deal and says, all right, well, I'll offer you a plea deal. You just plead guilty to having robbed this person. I don't know if it was, I believe it would have been a misdemeanor, and you get to go home right now. Now, Khalif Browder, he was standing on principle. He said, I did not rob this guy. I don't even know who this guy is. I wasn't doing anything wrong. no, I'm not pleading guilty to a crime. I don't want that on my record, because he knows what it looks like when you get crimes on your record. It's hard to get a job. It's hard to go to school. It's hard to get a house later on in life because you got these things on your record. So he said, no, I am not pleading guilty to this crime. And the judge said, okay, no problem. Then you got to come to trial. Now, here's the issue. Any of you know how the court system works, especially in a city like New York. Between the time that you appear before the judge and reject the plea deal, actually between the time you get arrested and the time you appear before the judge can take several days or weeks. You're in jail the whole time waiting. Then when he gets in front of the judge, she says, I'll give you a plea deal. He says no. They say, okay, we're going to go to trial. You know how long it takes between the time you say no to the plea and the time the trial actually happens? Please, people in the comments, please answer that. How long does that take? If you say no to the plea deal and then they say we're going to have a trial, do you know how much time that usually takes between point A and point B when you actually go to the trial? People, please put that in the comments so y'all understand, because I don't want y'all to just take my word for it. You can have your own peers here telling you years, months. It takes a long time. Like, it can be months. Now think about this. You are in jail. You've been accused of a crime by a random person that you don't even know. You have not been convicted of anything. And only because you were too broke to come up with $1,000, you got to sit in jail until you go to court to prove your own innocence. So while we do know the law of the land in America is innocent until proven guilty, there's an asterisk next to that phrase, because if you don't have any money, you can't prove your innocence, or you got to sit in jail until you get a chance to prove your innocence. So let's continue. More of the same story. Khalif Browder, this guy's name is. So they finally come up with the money. He can't bail himself out. Judge says, okay, we're going to go to trial. Now, the thing is, the trial gets delayed. So every time he has a court date to go in front of the judge for this trial, they keep delaying the trial because the court system is so backed up because they have so many cases. Now, why do they have so many cases? We'll get to that in a second. Remind me to talk about that if I forget. So they keep backing up the trial. So the trial keeps getting pushed back. So not today is going to be another 3 months. Not today is going to be another 3 weeks. Not today. And now he's staying in jail. And mind, he's in Rikers Island, which is like the most notorious jail in America, or one of them. He's in Rikers Island this entire time. And because he's a little bit defiant, now he's a defiant young man, he's being defiant with the correctional officers in the jail. So he's getting put in solitary confinement where he has to sit in the cell for 23 hours a day by himself, can't talk to anybody, doesn't have access to anything. It's just him by himself, nothing. Just him in a cell, a small cell that's very small, let's just say, by himself all day. He keeps getting put in there because he's arguing with the correctional officers in the jail. And mind you, he was only 16 years of age. He stays in the jail for 3 years because he keeps getting his trial delayed, and he keeps rejecting the plea deal. Because every time he gets in front of the judge says, well, look, we'll offer you that plea deal again. And he says, no. She says, okay, we'll go back to jail until we have your trial. And he keeps doing this. He keeps saying no to the plea deal. It takes 3 years for this all to work out. He was 16 years of age. Age 19, finally he has trial date. So he has a trial date. Now, here's the thing. The guy who accused him of robbing him was an immigrant who wasn't from the United States. He was from, I believe, a country to the south of us. So the prosecutors are staying in touch with this guy, and they're trying to bring him back to America because he's the one who accused him of robbing him. So their whole case is based on this witness saying this guy robbed me. So if they can't get the witness to come to court, they have no case. So they're trying to get this guy to come back to America for this case. And the guy didn't say anything. He didn't say this himself, but I'm assuming if this guy lives outside of the country, why am I going to fly all the way to New York just to come up to a court case? What do I get from coming to the court? I don't get anything. What, to help y'all out? To help the cops out? What do I get out of it? I don't get anything out of it. I'm not coming to that trial. So the guy doesn't come. He refuses to come to New York to even help the prosecutors with the trial. Therefore, when Khalif Browder finally gets in front of a judge for the trial, guess what they say? Well, we don't have any witnesses. We don't have the witness to show up here and identify you. So I guess we'll just drop the charges. They drop the charges. He gets to walk. He gets to go home. 3 years, no charge. Well, he got a charge, no trial, no conviction. He was not proven guilty of anything. He was in jail for 3 years because he didn't have $1,000. That's what happened. He goes back home. I don't know how long he was back home. He was home long enough for him to tell this story because they made a whole documentary about it. And y'all in the comments can let everybody know what ended up happening to him at 19 years of age. Like, took his own life. And why? Because after 3 years being inside of that jail, solitary confinement, his brain went crazy. He mentally kind of went crazy. I mean, for lack of a better term, he ends up taking his own life. Now, all of this happened because he didn't have money. If his family had $1,000, he would have bailed out. He still would have had to keep going to court, but he would have been going to court one time and saying, no, I'm not taking the plea deal. He would have went to court, let's say 5 or 6 times over the course of 3 years. But outside of those 5 or 6 days in court, he would have been doing what? Living his life, going to school, going to his job, hanging with his friends, hanging with his girlfriend, going to the gym, whatever it is that he does in everyday lilife. But he wasn't doing any of that. He was in jail the whole time because he didn't have money. I'm telling you all that to say, and again, watch this documentary. I'll watch the documentary so y'all can get all the details of this. I gave you the high level points, but I want you to watch it so you really understand this. And he said that when he got back home, his mom said this because he lived with his mom, right? And when he got back home to New York, well, in New York, he would go outside to outside of the house. And he would just walk around in this little circle, this paved circle outside of his house. And his mom, this is after he passed, his mom would say to him, son, why do you keep walking around outside in that small little circle? You can go anywhere you want. Why are you walking around the circle like that? And the boy said to his mom, he said, Mom, when I was in solitary confinement, this is all I could do. And it had broken his brain to the point that he didn't know how to do anything else. And he would just walk around this little tiny circle where he had complete freedom to go anywhere he wanted, living in the biggest city in the world, New York. And that's all he would do. And he eventually ended up taking his own life inside of his own home. His mom found him in his bedroom. And this is all based on the point here. It had nothing to do with him being innocent or guilty because he never even went to trial, folks. He never even went to trial. He got accused of a crime. Didn't even go to trial, never got found innocent or guilty. It was just the charges just straight up got dropped, all because of what he didn't have. He was a victim of the circumstance. And there are many things that many people have been trying to reform the system because of that story. That's one of many stories, but he was just a famous one. Moving on. And the second point here is, again, if you don't have resources, don't do anything or hang with anyone who could even get suspected of something like this, especially if you live in a place where this kind of stuff can happen to you very easily, like in certain parts of New York City or any big city. Moving on, point number 3. We're talking here again about criminal justice system. First, we're just establishing some baselines. The third point is this. Conversational tip: do not use legal outcomes or actions as proof of anyone's innocence or guilt. I already touched on this point plenty already here today. Just because someone got charged with a crime does not mean that they did it. Do not assume their innocence or guilt. Definitely not their guilt. A lot of people like to use this against people. Just because someone got a lawsuit filed against them, which I already talked about, doesn't prove anything whatsoever. All right, the filing proves absolutely nothing. Even the judgment proves absolutely nothing. As we talked about for the last 2 days with Mr. McGregor and even Hegseth, even with Donald Trump, these things don't prove anything because the burden of proof in a civil lawsuit is extremely low compared to the burden of proof for a criminal case. And oftentimes when someone comes to civil court and they bring you to civil court is after they failed in criminal court. Since it didn't work in criminal court, let's take you to civil court. It happened with O.J. Simpson. It's happened with Donald Trump. It happened with Conor McGregor. It happened with Pete Hegseth. And it happened with many others where they couldn't get you in criminal court. Now they're going to try to get you in civil court. Civil court is just about money. That's all civil court is. You lose a civil case, you just got to pay money. You don't go to jail based on anything that happens in civil court. So anybody can file a lawsuit. And I know people, as a matter of fact, I will tell you this. This is something that is personal experience. Somebody told me this, that they had a lawsuit filed against another person or someone filed a lawsuit against them is what happened. And they knew they were innocent. And this person's trying to get money out of them. This is a business owner that I know. Person's trying to get money out of them. And they go to arbitration. Arbitration is basically like a mediator who basically gets to decide, here's going to be the solution to this. You got to pay this person this much money and the case is done. And everybody got to sign paperwork and you can never bring this to court ever again. That's what arbitration looks like. So this guy knew he was 100% innocent. He gets a lawsuit filed against him and he's in court with the mediator. He's explaining to the mediator, he's making his case, him and his lawyer, that I am innocent. I didn't do anything wrong here. I don't owe this person any money. I shouldn't have to pay them anything. It should be zero. And you know what the arbiter said to him? The mediator said to him? Mediator said, I don't care about who's innocent or guilty. I don't care about what's right or wrong. My job is to just figure out a number. And the number that person was figuring out is the amount that the business owner had to pay to the person who was suing him. This is the kind of stuff that happens in court, folks. And this is the reason why people get sued when you're known for having resources. And it's not that people sue you just because they know you have resources, but if they feel they have a reason and they believe you have resources, people will sue you. This is what happens. And this is the reason why you got to protect your assets, especially those of you who own businesses or even if you don't own businesses, if you have money, you better figure out a way to protect your assets. Talk to a lawyer, talk to an accountant, and protect your assets so that people can't sue you for what you personally have. They can only come after your business, and then you can protect your business in many ways. The point here is in the United States, people will be very nasty if they believe they can get something out of you. So this person had to pay, even though they had a preponderance of proof that they were completely innocent of what they were being charged with in this civil case. And any of you has experience with this or knows anyone, y'all can co-sign. This happens all the time, that people will just get paid. And this is why you hear when a famous person, a person who's publicly noted for having resources, a famous person, gets sued, what's the main thing that their lawyer always says? First thing their lawyer does is come out with a statement, and the lawyer says what? This person is just trying to get money out of my client because they know my client has money. They're just trying to get money out of him. They say that all the time, right? The thing is, it gets said so often that it kind of goes in one ear and out the ear for the public when we hear it. But it's often that is actually the case. Sometimes there is a real charge, and there's not a charge, but a real claim that the accuser has. Other times, there's not a real claim the accuser has. And they're just, again, trying to extort money out of a person. And when you become known, you're getting dragged back and forth to court all the time. This is why people who get to that level, they usually have a lawyer on retainer, because this stuff is happening so often. Like, I might as well not just have to call you every time something happens. Let me just pay you on a consistent basis. And anytime something comes up, you just handle it for me. So I have to do it. All right, these are happening in courtrooms every single day in America. The point is, just because somebody is accused of a crime or they're sued of something does not mean anything about whether they actually did it or not. If you have good enough lawyers, you can pretty much beat any case. And if you have bad lawyers or no lawyers, you can get screwed in any case. This is the legal system in America. I'm talking on the civil level and on the criminal level. If you have bad lawyers or you do not have a lawyer, you can get screwed in any legal situation, a civil side or the criminal side. So again, this is my overall blanket level advice to anyone, average person, average or above average person or below average person. Don't do anything to get you in court if you don't have the resources to prove or defend whatever it is that you're in court for. Now let's move on to this whole concept of criminal justice reform. Now that we established that baseline, let's talk about this concept of criminal justice reform, because I see a lot of people who talk about this stuff and they say, well, we need to reform the criminal justice system. And often you hear people talking about this when they feel that someone who they support ends up in the system in a way they should not be in the system. Usually that's when this comes up. It becomes an issue. Well, there's a bunch of people whoever's talking, I support these people. Maybe you support them because of their nationality, maybe because of their race, maybe because of something, maybe an individual person. Now we need to reform the criminal justice system. Today, let's do that examination. All right, 3 points here. First of all, why do we always hear about support? We hear about criminal justice support or the criminal system support. What about support for the people who actually got victimized by the criminals? Why is there never a movement for that? This is just an open question that I have. I hear people often talking about we need to do things to make sure that criminals, people who have been convicted of crimes, and even if, again, I just explained, you can end up convicted of a crime even if you didn't actually do it, if you don't have any money. But someone who ends up being convicted of a crime, so technically by letter, you are a criminal. Why is there always such a strong movement to help and defend and make sure things are good for them? I never heard anybody coming up with a movement to help defend and make sure things are good for the victims of the criminals. Where's the movement for that? Why did nobody ever talk about that? See, a lot of people want to push for reform for how the criminals get handled, but I've never seen a grassroots movement to help the people who have been victims of the criminals. Why does anybody talk about that? This is an interesting question that I have. All right. So you'll see that when someone gets incarcerated, let's just say for a violent crime, which usually you get incarcerated for a violent crime. You can't fake a violent crime. All right. Somebody can't fake that happened. So you did something violent. All right. I don't even have to explain what those things are. We all know what violent crimes are. So let's just keep it on that level. All right. Forget about the white collar crimes. You stole some money. Let's just say violent crimes, which again, you can't fake that. You can fake that someone did a white collar crime because it's all paperwork and numbers, etc. But somebody got beat up, somebody got lost their lives, those kind of things, you can't really fake it. Now, on the general level, let me be clear. All right. Why are people lining up to defend the person who got incarcerated or They want that person to get maybe get freed. We need to free this person who was incarcerated. We need to give this person a shorter sentence, or that somehow they were given some exorbitant sentence of incarceration. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe this person got more time than they should have got. But the question is, why isn't there a movement to help the person who allegedly was victimized by this person? Nobody talks about them. It's like they don't even exist. It's like they're completely forgotten. Why are people so excited to defend the criminal, but no one's defending the victim? When Mr. Floyd passed away in Minneapolis 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, we know that immediately a bunch of stories came out about his background, because when a name gets known immediately, and this would happen to any of you, by the way, that if your name all of a sudden gets known in one day, a bunch of people are going to start digging into your history, your past, who you know, what you've done, et cetera, et cetera. This is just what happens when your name gets known. So when Mr. Floyd's name got known, it was probably within 24 hours. I think the first viral video I saw in response to it, not the video itself of him on the ground, but the first viral response video came from Candace Owens. And Candace Owens had a little selfie video that went viral where she took a minute or 3 and she talked about Mr. Floyd's background and said, well, he was incarcerated for this and this and this and this. And one of the things that he had been charged with and gone to court for was a home invasion on a pregnant woman. Do y'all know about this? And Candace Owens said this in the video, and a lot of people attacked her for doing it. And I'm bringing that up to say this: no one ever went and found out anything about that woman. Now, did that actually happen? I mean, he went to court for it. He got incarcerated for it. Why was nobody talking about that? I'm using that as an example. The topic here today is not about him or that woman, but the example is nobody even knows her name. Any of you even know her name? Nobody knows her name. Everybody knows his name because he was allegedly the victim of the police officer. But what about the people he had victimized when he was out doing what he was doing, living his life before that? Because he wasn't just some upstanding citizen. I think we all can agree to that to this day, whether you believe he deserved justice or not. We can agree that before that day, was he a person who was contributing to society in a positive way? I would say the answer is no. We have to honestly say the answer is no. And this is why I was against, and still am against, people making statues for him or naming things after him. Like, he wasn't doing anything positive on purpose. And if you're going to build a statue for somebody or call somebody a hero, they have to have been doing positive things intentionally. Now, if something positive came out of something that happened to you accidentally that you didn't plan for, okay, fine, but we can't build a statue for you. We build a statue for you. You had to have been doing it on purpose. He didn't do anything on purpose that would lead to a statue. And that's why I was never in agreement with people deifying the man and making him into a hero, as if, again, a hero does it on purpose. A hero is someone who you're facing a challenging situation and you know it may not work out, but you step forward into it anyway. He didn't do that. That's not what he did. So how are we making a hero out of that guy? You make a hero out of, like Dwayne Wade has a statue in front of the Miami Heat's basketball arena. He knew what he was doing every night. He knew he was playing basketball. All right, Michael Jordan has a statue. All right, Magic Johnson has a statue. All right, Abraham Lincoln has a statue. George Washington has a statue. All right, these people were doing things on purpose to help other people out. You can't do something by accident and get a statue. That wasn't his plan that day. So anyway, that's how I feel about that. Let's move on to point number 2. There is this pervasive idea that the majority of criminals, especially criminals in the African-American community, I shouldn't use that term. Let's say Black community. Some people would label me African-American, but I ain't from Africa. My parents are not. Their parents are not. I don't know anybody in Africa. Well, actually, I probably do know some people in Africa, but I ain't never been to Africa. My parents and their parents never lived in Africa. I'm not African. I'm a Black American. But Black Americans, you hear people talking all the time that these people are, quote unquote, victims of the system. Now, you hear this often, that these people are victims of the system. You especially hear this in the Black community, because these people couldn't help themselves. So they couldn't help themselves. They're victims of the system. The system just kind of pushed them into the life that they ended up in. And this is how they ended up being incarcerated. This is patently false. Now, this is false. And let me tell you why this is false. And I'm talking specifically to the Black community right now. 55% of people who are in the state incarceration system, state prison system. So the state system, not the federal system, but the state prison systems, 55% of them are there for violent crimes. So this includes taking life. This includes assault. This includes robbery, and it includes regular assault, like fighting people, beating people up. They are not in the system for having $5 of an illicit drug on them. That's not how most people end up in the state prison system. Most of it is violent crime. So for drugs, 14% at the state level, not the federal level, the state level. Now, there are more white people incarcerated for drugs than there are black people incarcerated for drugs at the state level. Again, most people don't know this and wouldn't think it, but these are actual facts. There are more black people incarcerated for taking someone's life than there are black people incarcerated for drugs, all drug crimes put together. Let me say that one more time. At the state level in the United States of America, there are more black people incarcerated for taking the life of another person than there are black people incarcerated for all drug crimes put together. That is a statistical fact. And I talked about this a couple of days ago. Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow. And if you haven't read that book, you should read it. Even though there are some things in that book that could be challenged, many things that could and should be challenged. The book is all about the justice system, and you should understand it because a lot of people read that book. It was a very influential book. It went not viral, but it was a very popular book. This book came out about 10 years ago, by the way. So if you didn't hear of it, go look it up. Michelle Alexander, I believe, is and was a college professor on some level. I believe somewhere on the West Coast. And she talked about how the system targets black and brown people for petty crimes, because then it goes on their records. So you get arrested for having $5 of marijuana on you. Now you get incarcerated. Now you accept a plea deal, let's say. Now that's on your record. Now you can't get an apartment lease. Now you can't move in with your child's mother and their kid. You can't get a job. And now what do? Well, I guess you got to go sell more marijuana. All right. So that's how you get in the cycle. Does that happen? Yes, it does. That absolutely does happen. All right. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. That absolutely happens. It goes on your record. Now with that crime on your record, usually it's a male. Now you can't live in the apartment. You can't get a job. You're estranged and separated from your family because you can't move in with them. You can't live with them anymore. You can't get a job, so you can't provide. So what does the mother of your child need you for? All right, you can't do anything. Now you can't be around your kid. This exacerbates the issue of a lack of two-parent homes in the black community and broken communities. And now you got this man who's still alive. He is able-bodied, but he can't go work anywhere legal. Now what does he do? He goes right back into the streets. So now we create this cycle. And does that happen? Again, yes, this happens. However, I read this book in 2013 when it came out. I have come to some new understandings and gotten some new information since then, like what I just shared with you. And most black males who are incarcerated, again, they didn't get there because the system is kind of setting them up and, all right, let's stop and frisk this person with some weed on them and boom, we got them in the system. That's not how most people end up incarcerated. It's usually because of something that physical violence against another person. That is not a victim of the circumstance. And oh, by the way, most of the physical violence that is happening against other people, that's intraracial, not interracial, intraracial, meaning black on black or white on white. But I'm talking about the black community right now because I'm not white. Black on black. And people go read the data. Just yesterday, I was on X and some person exposed themselves and not understanding how to read data. That I said, and this is true, that the rate of black on black violent crime is much higher than that of any other group's violent crime. White on white, Asian on Asian, Latin on Latin. Those are the four biggest groups. You got black, white, Asian. Well, white is the biggest. Then you have Latin is starting to surpass black people, probably already did. Then you got black people, and then you got Asians. Those are the four biggest groups. The black on black rate of violent crime against each other is way higher than all the other groups. Actually, it might be higher than all the other groups put together, maybe, but it's higher than everybody individually. And someone will go and post, somebody went on Chat GPT and looked up the numbers. They're going to be careful with Chat GPT because it can only answer the question that you ask. So if you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. You're going to make yourself look stupid. So this person went on Chat GPT and they asked about that. And it said, well, the white on white murders were like, let's say a number, it was like 8,000. The black on black murders were like 5,000. They posted back to me like, no, Dre, you got it wrong. I'm like, you idiot. There are 5 times more white people than there are black people. So what you had to do is multiply the black number by 5 to understand the rate. And that's how it's way higher. And again, this is how a lot of people don't understand how to read data. So y'all all be careful when you're throwing data at people. Make sure you're not exposing your own ignorance. So if there are 5 times more black people than white people and the number of murders race on race are exactly the same, that means you got to multiply the black number by 5 to understand to put it in proper perspective. And that's where, and a bunch of other people pointed that out on X yesterday. But all of you need to understand the point here I'm bringing up is that you are not a victim of the circumstance. You're committing a violent crime. There's no circumstance that forces you to commit a violent crime. Now, a circumstance can force you to go sell some marijuana. I get that. I can get how you could do that. I know people who have engaged in that. And the circumstance, I wouldn't say the circumstance forced them, but I understand why they would do it, because it allows you to make some quick money and it's hard for you to get a job. I get it. But there is no circumstance that forces you to physically injure another person. There's no circumstance that forces that. And there's a website called Prison Legal News, and they said the following, and I'm going to read this quote. This is a quote. Based on data compiled by the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, that's the UCR program. And by the way, I'm taking out a quote right now. You all can go look up the FBI's UCR data. This is called Uniform Crime Reporting. You can look this information up. It is publicly available. This is the government. The government works for us. We don't work for them. All of this data is widely available. The challenge with the data is that you have to know how to read data. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. A lot of people don't know how to read data. But anyway, continuing my quote. It found that while Black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, there were 33% of persons arrested for non-fatal violent crime, which includes the R word that I can't say, robbery, aggravated assault, and other assaults. Black people were 36% of those arrested for serious non-fatal violent crimes, including the R word that I can't say, robbery, and aggravated assault, period, close quote. Point being, again, you won't hear this from many governments, because if the government was to say this, a lot of people would get mad and they would piss off too many people. You can't win in elections pointing these things out. So you have to find independent sources who can point out these things. So while you may not like the way that I say it, or you may not like how Candace Owens says it, or somebody else, whoever, you have to go find independent sources who can tell you what is actually true, the truth, not just the facts, but the truth, because the truth means all the facts put in proper context. Truth means you got to take the fact and you got to explain the context of the fact, because if you listen to what ChatGPT says, it will give you facts taken out of context. The fact out of context is that there are more white on white murders than black on black murders. But when you include the context, which a lot of people don't understand, is that there are 5 times more white people than black people. So then in context, that data proves the exact opposite of what you thought it proved. And again, ChatGPT, folks, does not have the ability to think. So any of you teachers out there or college professors, the good news for you is that, yes, your students can use ChatGPT. That's bad news for you. But the good news is, if you ask them the right question that proves that they know how to think, then you can catch them in their bullshit. All right. So that's a little hint, little tip for you teachers out there. But if you just ask them for raw information, well, what's the point of them even coming to school? Anyway, let's move on to point number 3. We are talking here today about criminal justice reform. Let's get a little bit more subjective. All right. Let's get more subjective here. So everybody heard me. I'm getting subjective. The previous point was objective. Now I'm going to get subjective. This whole concept, especially in the black community, we have a big problem with of worshiping criminals. This is endemic in the black community. I don't know what other community all the rest of you are from, but in the black community, we have this issue. And some of you who are not black, if you pay attention to the internet and you look around at what's happening socially, you probably see this and you would be reticent to point it out publicly, because you would get attacked because of who you are saying it. But see, I can say it because I'm black, so I can point this out. I'm still going to get attacked for saying it, but I won't get attacked as much as you would get attacked for saying it. Like, I'm not going to get fired from my job for pointing it out, but you would get fired from your job. So let me say it. In our community, we have this whole thing of looking up to people who are criminals as if this is some type of accomplishment, and then defending them after they get caught for their crime as if we are doing something just and like we're doing something, what's the word, something virtuous by defending this person. In the rap industry, you often see a rapper go to jail for some crime and people are like, well, free that rapper. Well, wait a minute. Why do we want to free that rapper? Did he actually do the crime? No, keep his ass in jail where he's supposed to be for committing the crime. I like his music, but no, we're not going to just let him out of jail just because we like the songs. Like, if you did the crime, you got to do the time. Everybody knows the deal. And I'm kind of being tongue in cheek with that, but y'all get the point that I'm making. Why in our community do we look up to these people who are criminals? How does George Floyd have a statue, but Dr. Ben Carson doesn't have a statue? Explain that to me. How do we want to go march? We want to celebrate George Floyd. There are people in the, I'm not looking at the comments while I'm talking, but I'm sure there's some black people listening to this who are listening to me now. They're going to listen to it later. Maybe some white people too, who are mad that I'm saying anything critical of George Floyd, but you would trash Clarence Thomas because he's a conservative. Explain to me how that makes sense. Tell me how that makes sense. So we don't want to look up to a Clarence Thomas because he's a conservative and he's on the I guess the MAGA Trump side, even though he's been in the Supreme Court since the 90s, way before Trump came around. But since he's a conservative, you don't like Clarence Thomas, even though he's a black man who has created success. But George Floyd, a guy who was in the streets, didn't do anything on purpose to uplift the community. Now, and even him losing his life wasn't uplifting to the community. I don't know how was that uplifting to the community? He lost his life fighting against the cops. Explain to me how that makes any sense. But we built a statue for him. I ain't never seen a Clarence Thomas statue. I never seen a Dr. Ben Carson statue, but we got a statue for him. Tell me how that makes sense. And again, there's no other community in the United States of America that would do this. Latins don't do this. Asians don't do that. White people don't do it. How is it that we're doing this? This is cultural rot, for lack of a better term, is what we have. This aspect of it. All right. This aspect of it is cultural rot. How is this? How are we admiring criminals and we're framing it as cool to support them? There's a guy. He led a gang in Chicago. His last name is Hoover. Some of you may be familiar with him. And I don't know too much of the details of his story, but I want to say this on a high level. Kanye West is from Chicago. I wasn't supposed to say his name, but I guess I can say his name. I got away with it. All right. So anyway, he's from Chicago. He did a concert. This is after, remember, Kanye and Drake were having a conflict many years ago, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that. And they decided to squash their conflict. And they did a concert. I believe it was in California. And the whole premise of the concert was, we're supporting getting this guy out of incarceration, because the reason he was incarcerated is because for many things, I don't know the specific reason he was incarcerated, but because he started a gang in Chicago and there's a lot of violence and people were losing their lives, et cetera, et cetera. And a whole bunch of people went to this concert. And of course, they went to see their favorite artists do their songs, but there were a whole lot of people there under this premise of, we got to free this guy from prison. I'm like, wait, what did this guy do? Now, he started a gang and a bunch of people were losing their lives. And it wasn't like they were out there killing white people. They were killing each other. This is black people killing black people. He started that gang. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Again, I don't know too many details of his story, but the whole point is, why are people getting so excited for that? And we're not getting excited for, there's a black person on the Supreme Court. There's a black person who's a well-renowned doctor who's created all these successes. And he has, those of you like to look up the education, he has all these educational credentials. Why do these people get ignored? But this guy who was a gang guy, and you got rappers rapping about him now, all of a sudden, this is the thing that we're celebrating. What other community does this? You can't name one. And let me be clear, because there are some black folks, I'm sure, disagreeing with what I'm saying right now. You look back at someone like Malcolm X. Malcolm X has many, and these get posted on social media all the time. I'm sure some of you who look at these things, you've probably seen them. Malcolm X talks about this. He says, you never see, when you want to have a serious discussion about politics or policy or what's happening socially in the world, you never see Latin people send a singer or a baseball player or what's another entertainer, an actor or an actress on a serious TV show to discuss these topics. But in the black community, we do. We got basketball players telling us who we should vote for. You got singers coming to campaign events, getting paid millions of dollars to talk for 4 minutes, Beyonce for Kamala Harris. And by the way, how did Kamala Harris fly to Texas to do a Beyonce show or Beyonce appearance in Texas, a state that she had no chance of winning, and she didn't win, but she didn't have time to go to the Joe Rogan show, which happens to be in where? Austin, Texas. All right, different conversation for a different day. But anyway, how is it that we're sending Beyonce to tell us who to vote for, and people are cheering for this and excited? What the hell do I care what Beyonce has to say about politics? I don't. Beyonce, sing your songs and shut the hell up. I don't hear what Beyonce has to say. I don't care what LeBron James has to say about politics. LeBron James, LeBron James got all this credit when he launched the school, right? LeBron James has this school in his hometown in Ohio, Akron, Ohio. It's called the I Promise School. And everyone was all excited when LeBron has a school. Now, technically, it's not his school. All he did was put his name on it. He put some money behind it, but it's not his school. It's, I believe, a public school. And I don't know if y'all know this, because nobody in the mainstream media has talked about it since they announced, oh, LeBron has a school. That was supposed to be like a mark under his belt. Do y'all know that the students at that school can't read? Did y'all know that? That the students at that school, LeBron's school, see, now they're acting like it's not his school anymore after the facts came out, that the students at that school cannot read. The majority of the students at that school are reading below grade level at LeBron's school. Now, and this is the guy that you want telling you who you should vote for and what you should do politically. And listen, I ain't mad at LeBron for saying what he says, because people are coming to him with microphones in his face and saying, what do you think? And if I was him, I might answer the question too. If Kamala offered me a couple $1 million to come to my hometown and tell you to vote for Kamala, I might do it too. All right, if I was already leaning in that direction. Now we know Beyonce and Jay-Z already lean towards the left, because what's the guy's name? Jay-Z was stumping for Barack Obama in 2008. So it's not like they did anything. They had to do anything new. I would take the money too. All right. So I ain't mad at you, Beyonce, for getting your money, but at the same time, shut the hell up. Why do I want to hear what you have to say? And the reason she shut the hell up is because people need to stop asking her, what does she think? All right. And you saw what Kamala Harris did during her whole campaign. Who she have? Name all the black celebrities Kamala Harris had co-signing her. And I'm not talking about black celebrities who are known for their thoughts and their intellect. Like, I ain't mad at who's a black celebrity who's known for their intellect who might have had something to say. You got anybody? Give me some names. Who are the people that Kamala had working with her? So she had Megan Thee Stallion. I don't care what she has to say about anything intellectually. She had Quavo, the rapper. Don't care what he has to say about anything intellectually. Who are some other people she had? Black celebrities. LeBron didn't really do anything. He just answered the question. And someone said, do I know anything about LeBron's school? Like, actually, what I just said, what I just said is true. It's not his school, first of all. So it's not LeBron's school. He has his name on the school. His brand is on the school. That is not his school. He did not build it. He does not own it. It's owned by the local government. Cardi B is another one. Yeah. And Cardi B is what? Is she half black, half Latin? Don't care what Cardi B has to say. Cardi B couldn't even give her statements from the heart. She had to read off the teleprompter. The teleprompter wasn't working, so they had to give her a phone, and she read her statements off the phone. And people were still cheering for her. Like, we know that you're fake. You're reading the whole thing off a phone. But people are excited about this. So a couple, you mentioned Cardi B. Now, Oprah Winfrey, I'll give Oprah a little bit of credit. Now, Oprah is known for having built a business. All right, that's different than being a rapper or being a stripper or being a basketball player. Oprah did build a business. So I'll give Oprah a little bit of credit. Now, what Oprah did also say is that if Kamala doesn't win, we may never be able to vote again. Now that's crazy. J-Lo. Yeah, J-Lo's another one. Now, J-Lo's an entertainer. So, yeah, J-Lo's a good example, even though she's not black. Magic Johnson has built some businesses. Magic Johnson's a basketball player, but he stopped playing basketball like 30 years ago. So, Magic has done some business stuff. So, I give Magic a pass on this point because Magic has built a business. So, y'all who said Magic, I give him a pass. I give Oprah a pass because they've actually done business things that requires actual intellect. Now, what they said about Kamala was stupid. But they have done things that build intellect. At least you ask somebody who's done something with intellect. If they say something dumb, I can at least say, okay, at least I see why you asked that person. I can see asking Magic Johnson. I can see asking Oprah. I do not see asking Megan Thee Stallion or Quavo or Cardi B or LeBron James or Beyonce what they think, because they got their notoriety 100% from entertaining. And I'm not a fan of that. And this, again, what other community do you see doing this? You don't see any other community doing this. Even Donald Trump, if you wanted to make the Kamala versus Trump campaign about black versus white, all right, who are all the white celebrities that Donald Trump rolled out? He had a few, but it wasn't nearly as many as Kamala had, and people weren't nearly as excited about it. So Trump had, who do you have? Hulk Hogan did some campaign stuff for him. I'm not talking about people who just said something positive on social media. I mean, people who went to his events and actually said, hey, here's me, I'm here. Just a celebrity, person who's only known for their celebrity from entertainment, not known for anything intellectually, no business building. What white people did he bring up? Dana White built a business. All right, Kid Rock is a good example. So Kid Rock is one. I don't know who Lee Greenwood is, just the facts. I don't even know who that is. Amber Rose is a good example. That's fair enough. Amber Rose. Dana White doesn't count because Dana White built a business. Lil Pump, I didn't hear Lil Pump say anything, but okay. Lil Wayne, what side was he on? He was on the Democrat side or Republican side? Lil Wayne was with Trump. The Proud to Be an American thing. Okay, all right, I didn't know that's who that was. Yeah, Hulk Hogan. Now, I know Hulk Hogan more for entertainment. So I would give Hulk Hogan is one that I would say for Trump, but I can't think of anybody else. I can't think of anybody else at like entertainment level that's like well known. Y'all telling me people I never even heard of. And that's my point. All of you heard of these black people that I'm pointing out. I'm bringing all of this up. Lil Wayne, okay. I don't know what Lil Wayne said, but if he did say something, I'll give you that one. Someone says Chef G and Sleepy Hollow. I do not know who they are. Never heard of them. Nick Bosa didn't do any campaign work. He just put a hat on TV. I'm talking about people who actually did campaign events. Beyonce did an event. Cardi B did an event. These people went to events and spoke like, I'm at this Kamala event. I'm with her. That's what I mean. So Nick Bosa doesn't count because he wasn't at an event. He just put a hat on after the game. That's not what I mean. Dr. Phil, well, Dr. Phil does intellectual work. I wouldn't put Dr. Phil in that category. He is technically a therapist. So no, I wouldn't put that. Antonio Bryant, he didn't do an event. Did he do an event? I think he did. I think you might be right. Antonio Brown. But Antonio Brown, okay, we'll give you Antonio Brown. I'll give you that one. Okay, so I'm saying all that to say in the black community, we tend to listen to what these people have to say. Do you think anybody voted for Donald Trump because of Antonio Brown? I don't think so. I don't think Antonio Brown moved any votes for Donald Trump. I think that was just a way of what I think it was for Trump on that side, a way of telling black people, hey, it's okay if you want to publicly say you're supporting Trump. I think they were already supporting. I don't think Antonio Brown moved any votes. And I don't think any of the people on the left side moved any votes either. I think we've already proven that doesn't really work. But people were very excited on the left when the Beyonce and all these other rappers, et cetera, stepped up. Let me get back to my bigger point. My bigger point is this, that only in the black community do we get excited about this bullshit. That's the point. You don't see any other community doing this. Malcolm X said this 60 years ago. No other community does this, rolls out their entertainers and athletes when they want to move their people to make serious decisions. No other community does this. That's the point that I'm making here. And this is what we've been doing in the black community for decades, is rolling out celebrities and entertainers to tell us what we're supposed to do and think and say when it comes to serious topics. And the problem is many of our people who are supposed to be serious are riding this wave because it works for them to draw more attention. So I'm looking at you, Barack Obama. I'm looking at you, Kamala Harris. I'm looking at you. Who else? Who's some other people who we're supposed to take serious, but they're leveraging these entertainers because they know that this is going to get black people excited. That's the problem. The problem in our community is that we get excited over it. It's not that they're doing it. It's the fact that we get excited. Because if we said, yo, we don't want to hear a rapper or an entertainer telling us who to vote for, then the next Democratic candidate won't bring rappers and entertainers to their campaign events. They'll just stop bringing them out. This is the point, is that we get excited over it. So this is an internal accountability point. This is not about what they're doing. Because listen, if I was to run for president and I believe bringing Beyonce and Jay-Z to my event is going to get me more votes, well, guess what? I'm calling Beyonce and Jay-Z because I'm trying to win these votes. I'm trying to get this election. But if the black community says, Dre, we don't want to hear what a rapper has to say, well, guess what? I'm going to call Clarence Thomas. I'm going to call Dr. Ben Carson. I'm going to call some serious black people who have made their mark with their intellect, and I'm going to let them come talk to you if you wanted to actually hear it. Now, do black people want to hear it? That's the question. See, that's the question. So some people also say, when I point this out, now I'm a fan of rap music. I listen to it damn near all day. If I'm not listening to an audiobook or a podcast or some YouTube video and I don't listen to nonsense, I'm listening to music. And I listen to rap music, what many of you call gangster rap music. I listen to this stuff. And at the same time that I listen to it and I like it and I'm a fan, I can also say that many rappers in their music glorify criminal activity. They glorify things that if you were to actually go follow and live how they rap, you would end up incarcerated or deceased. That's what would happen to you. If you do what a lot of rappers rap about, you would end up deceased. All right, my favorite rapper is a guy named 50 Cent. Y'all know 50 Cent, right? And one of my favorite albums of all time is his first album, Get Rich or Die Trying. If you lived the way 50 raps on that album, you would end up losing your life. He almost lost his. His whole album is based on the fact he almost died based on stuff he was doing in the street that usually gets most people killed or incarcerated. He happened to survive and he built a whole career off of it. Anybody else who lives like that does not survive and does not make a rap album based off of it. And at the same time that I'm a fan of the music, I understand that this is not what I should go do. I can listen to it and separate the entertainment from the actions. The problem is, especially in our community, if you don't have the proper guidance around you, you can listen to that stuff and think that you're supposed to go do it. And this is where the problems come in. And this is what happens in the black community. One of the reasons is because a lot of young men grow up without proper figures in their lives to show them how to separate one from the other. See, I understand how to separate one from the other. But if you don't know how to separate one from the other, then you look at him and you say, well, this guy is successful. He has all these things. And this is what he's saying to do. Well, I'm going to go do the same thing. I'm going to think the way that he thinks. And I'm going to go do the same thing. The problem is you won't be as lucky as he was. And you end up incarcerated or underneath the ground because nobody could tell you how to separate the entertainment from real life. And this happens in our community all the time. So somebody sometimes asks when I say things like this, well, Dre, how can you say 50 Cent's your favorite rapper and then criticize the stuff that he's rapping about? Or the same way that I can say a candy bar is not good for you, then go buy a Snickers bar and eat it. All right, human beings, we are walking contradictions. We know when we're doing something that we are not necessarily supposed to do. Like I can entertain gangster rap music. Gangster rap music is like the P word, but the lyrical version of it. So like the P word that people watch, sex, All right, it's like that, but there's a lyrical version of that. That's what gangster rap music is. You know that you shouldn't go and live what's being rapped in that song, but if you don't have anyone who can teach you how to separate one from the other, what's going to stop you from going and doing it? What's going to stop you from going and trying to live like Jay-Z? All right, Jay-Z's career is based on, hey, I was in the streets selling these things that I shouldn't be selling. He happened to survive and not get incarcerated, not die, and now he has a whole career based off of it. But most people who go do that do get incarcerated and they do die. And they don't become famous rappers. But who's going to tell you that? If you don't have a father at home, who's going to tell you that? Who's going to tell you, hey, this is the way you need to look at that? You got to be able to separate one from the other. And again, our community does this most prevalently. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other communities, but this is the most prevalent thing that happens. So this is the reason why, again, some black people throw around this point that, oh, and here's other thing that black people throw around. They say, oh, well, it's not the rapper's fault that the people who run the industry, who are often not black, people who run the industry will pay 50 Cent or they'll pay Jay-Z or they'll pay name your favorite gangster rapper to rap about these degenerate things that are influencing the young men in our community. It's not 50 Cent's fault that somebody paid him a bunch of money to go say that stuff. How about we blame the people who paid 50 Cent? And I say the following. If someone offered you a bunch of money to do something that you don't believe is right, would you take the money? Would you do it? Answer the question. If y'all answer that in the comments. Yes or no. Would you do it? If you're a heterosexual man and someone offered you $5,000 to perform a not heterosexual act on another man, would you take the money and do it for the money? Okay, so most of your answers are no. So why can we not apply that same framework to your favorite musicians? So we can't look at the musicians and say, oh, well, somebody's paying them a bunch of money to say crazy stuff that is influencing our community, so we got to blame the person who's paying them. No, bullshit. We blame you for taking the money. Someone offers me money to offer you, let's say I get offered brand deals all the time. I get brand deal emails randomly, like at least 2 or 3 a day, whether directly to me or to my assistant's inbox. And some of them, they're offering me things that make no sense whatsoever, have no connection whatsoever to anything that I talk about. Now, if all I cared about was cashing out and just collecting as much money as possible from every possible source, I would just say yes to every deal. And every time I did one of these, I would have like 10 commercials selling you some product that has no relevance whatsoever to anything that I talk about. But because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, I'm not taking the money. Just because someone offers you money doesn't mean you have to do what they're offering you the money to do. So this is ridiculous. And again, what this comes back to, and this I may do a whole live on this concept, is in the black community, one of our biggest problems is the lack of self-accountability. So whenever I talk about the black community, people ask, what are the biggest challenges in the community? Well, number one and number two. Number one is not enough 2-parent households. And number two, lack of self-accountability, lack of internal accountability. Anytime you can point out something that a black person did, the common response you get from a lot of black people is figuring out a way to blame someone who's not black on why that person did what they did. Bullshit. This is not acceptable. If we're going to raise ourselves up as a community, this is not acceptable. And we can't keep saying, oh, well, somebody's paying us to do it or people are responding to it. There has to be a grassroots shift from we're going to stop accepting the nonsense and we're going to start doing this. So what happens with the influence of the music on the ladies' side? And nowadays, it's like the ladies can present themselves as basically like strippers, but making money from it through entertainment, not stripping entertainment, but through music. That's the thing now. And then the males are all gangsters and criminals. Well, of course, that's going to influence a whole lot of people to behave that way because this apparently is what works. All right. Do you remember the movie 8 Mile with Eminem? You remember in the climactic scene when Eminem is battling against the black guy? And what does he do? He makes fun of him. And this is an example. You could use a white person doing this because Eminem was he was kind of from the ghetto, right? He was living in a trailer park. So he's in this era, not this era, but this community of mostly rappers, and they're all rapping about being tough and gangsters. And what does Eminem do in that battle at the end of the movie? He makes fun of his opponent because his opponent has a mom and dad at home, and he goes to a private school, and his parents have a really good marriage. I remember that? Clarence. His real name's Clarence, and his parents have a really good marriage, and everybody laughed at him. That's again, only in our community is that something to be ridiculed for. That only happens in the black community. I've never seen white people laugh at each other because you have two parents at home and they have a good marriage and you go to a private school. Those are positive things. But in our community, it's like you could knock somebody down and hurt their credibility for this. Again, how did there's a whole conversation we can have about this, that having some type of fucked up background is now a positive thing. That's a reflection of cultural decay. That having a fucked up background means you are more credible or more quote unquote real than somebody whose background is not fucked up. That's only in our community is that looked at as like that makes sense. No other community does this, at least not in the United States. So let me recap my points with everything that I said here. So 6 points. We talked criminal justice reform. First, some baselines about the system. And I'm going to take questions and comments in a second. So if you want me to see your comment, especially those of y'all on TikTok, hold it for a second until I come over there. Number one, the legal system in America is not based on innocence or guilt. It's based on if you can afford it, which is my second point. You have financial resources, then you can deal with the court system. If you don't have resources, the court system will deal with you. And number three, do not get involved in anything that could possibly lead to a legal situation or anyone who is doing anything that could if you don't have the resources and you don't want to be in the system, because you will end up in the system. Second half of my points. Point number 4. Why is there so much support in our community specifically, but others is being branched out to others for helping criminals? I don't hear anybody talking about helping the victims. Number 2, there's this pervasive idea that the majority of criminals are somehow victims of the system, but the data says otherwise. Data says the majority of people who are incarcerated at the state level are there for violent crime, not for having $5 of marijuana in their pocket. And point number 6, getting more subjective. This concept of worshiping criminals and worshiping illegal activity or any type of lower level activity, such as that song that Cardi B and what's the woman's name, Megan Thee Stallion, that WAP song. Remember that song? That song that they created. When did that become cool? When did it become cool to be that level of raunchy and put yourself out there? And this was celebrated as some type of freedom for our people. Again, when did that become a thing? I don't know when, but it definitely is a thing now. All that said, let's go to the questions and comments over on YouTube. TJ, I appreciate your engagement over here. And someone said the majority of Democrats and Hispanics, I don't know, what are they? I would say they're probably all, the majority of Democrats and Hispanics, I don't know what you're referring to there. Your comment, I know it's in context of what I was saying, but I don't know what you were referring to when you said that. Let me see what we got over on Instagram. Prudence, good morning. Official Sales says states like New Mexico don't have a bond system. Yeah, no, every state is different. D. Aberdeen was going on, my guy. He said definitely was not an upstanding citizen. No, he wasn't. Prudence said black community is celebrating the man who, yeah, well, everybody is. I was on social media. That guy, did y'all hear about that CEO, the healthcare CEO who lost his life the other day in New York? I didn't see just the black community. I saw everybody. A bunch of people who, for whatever reason, don't like the healthcare system. A lot of people saying crazy things about that. Crespo said praising bad behavior does not help any race, especially minorities. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right there with it. Prudence said there's solid integrity to a lot of them slice of merit. Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I didn't know what Hulk, I mean, I know Hulk Hogan has businesses, but I know him more for his wrestling. So that's the one person I would say is, like, as far as entertainers that were on the Trump campaign, the only person I really saw was Hulk Hogan. So let's go over to TikTok. All right, TikTok, we're here. So Brittany, you see any comments I should respond to? Just go ahead and pin them and let's get to it. So what is that? Shuggy sent the Galaxy. I never saw that one before. So Shuggy, thank you for that one. I never saw that Galaxy gift. Thank you, everybody who's been posting gifts while I've been talking here. User 724 said, okay, you're a Trump supporter. How am I a Trump supporter? I didn't say anything positive about him. I just use them as examples. I find, and I say this all the time, I got to say this damn near every day. I just talk about things logically and objectively. And when I do, people say, well, you're a MAGA or a Trump supporter, or you're a Republican or a conservative. And when I'm trying to be logical and objective, and I think I'm pretty good at it, I never have anybody accuse me of being a Kamala supporter or a Democrat or a liberal. I think that says a lot about the left, the political left, that when I'm trying to be logical and objective, I only get accused of being a conservative or a Trump supporter. I think that says a lot about what you're not accusing me of, which means if you're not being logical and objective, that means if you're being logical and objective, you can't possibly be a Democrat or you can't be on the left. Mikey said the prison system is not designed to rehabilitate anyone. I agree with that. I didn't say that it was. Missy said, are women allowed to be intelligent? Of course, allowed. I think they should be intelligent. Someone said, what about Trump unskilled cabinet? Well, how do you define skilled? What skill are you talking about? Stitch to the Truth said, Elon Musk paid people. Well, Elon Musk has a business. He pays people all the time. What do you mean? Pay people for what? If you work for Elon, if I worked at Elon Musk's company, he better be paying me. Otherwise, I'm not coming to work anymore. A-Town said, that's agenda is a employee that could work in a different setting. I don't know what you're referring to. Brittany said, Oprah is guilty of crimes against humanity. I've heard that, but she did build a business. I was only bringing her name up because of that. Cove said, Kamala, not even, I've talked about it. I did whole lives on that before the election, Code 336. We addressed that in much detail. Cause You Think said, the point is celebrities in general don't matter in decisions that affect everyday people. Not anymore, they don't, but they used to have influence. That used to work. It doesn't work anymore, but it used to. A-Town said, each of these people have influence. Technically, they do, but they're not moving the needle. That's the point. Because if that moved the needle, then Kamala should have won this last election. She used many more celebrities than Trump did. So if that influence actually moved the needle in elections, then she should have won because she used a lot more of them than he did and spent a lot more money than he did. So influence does not necessarily translate to votes. So it depends on what they're using that influence for. You can influence me to listen to your album, Jay-Z, but you're not influencing me on who to vote for. There's two different types of influence. D. Jones says, so what makes Joe Rogan so much more credible? Well, let me ask you that question, D. Jones. If you hear Beyonce talk, what is she usually saying? She's usually talking about her music. She's singing and dancing. She's an entertainer. Joe Rogan's show is technically entertainment, but he has intellectual conversations. Would you agree? I would say Joe Rogan's show is an intellectual conversation, even though it's a podcast and it falls under the category of entertainment. What Joe Rogan does and what Beyonce do are two different things. Joe Rogan's having an intellectual discussion with intellectual people. He has professors on there. He has doctors on there. He sometimes has some people who are just funny people. He has Snoop Dogg on the show. He's had Donald Trump on the show. He had J.D. Vance on the show. He invited Kamala to the show. I don't know if he invited Walls, but he invited these people. He has conversations with intellectual people, and he goes in depth with them. And there's no way you can draw a parallel between him and, again, Beyonce or Jay-Z having a conversation. That they're not equals. Or Cardi B. Like, let's not act like that's a serious question. Stephen Kelly, am I related to James Baldwin? I don't think so. If I am, I didn't know about it. Keeping up with race, I said Kerry Washington. Which side was she on? The Trump side or the Kamala side? Someone said no comparison between Trump and Carmela Harris. I think there is a comparison. I mean, they were running against each other, so we can't say there was no comparison. They were comparing. A. Lawson said you need to read at least one of those books behind you. Well, you'd be surprised to know that I read all of them because I wrote all of those books that are behind me. Trump's NYC2 said Trump is consistent with his messaging. That I can agree with. D. Jones says simply having built a business doesn't make you more credible. I think if we're talking on an intellectual level, D. Jones, I would rather listen to a person who has built a business than a person who has built their notoriety through being an entertainer. If I had to choose which one I want to listen to and I want to have an intellectual discussion, I'd rather talk to someone whose notoriety comes from building a business than a person whose notoriety comes from singing and dancing or putting a ball in the basket. That's what I'm saying. So credible is a subjective term, but now I've just explained it out to you so you understand what I'm saying. Let's say Bake Ball said he spoke. Who's he? Who are you talking about? Someone said use the equal lens. What is that? What are you referring to? I need context when you all leave these comments because I don't know what you're talking about because I'm reading your comments way after you posted it. So I don't know what you're referring to. So you got to give me context. I know you don't get a lot of space to say what you got to say. So that's your communication skills, giving me context and making your comment all at the same time. I know it's not easy. That's the whole point. Stitch to the Truth said, I beg to differ. Okay, go ahead and differ. You don't have to beg, just differ. What are you differing on? Say what you got to say in the comment. If you just say what you got to say in the comment, then I'll be able to read it and understand what you're talking about. But if you just respond to me when I'm talking in real time, Do y'all see how quickly these notifications are coming in? I don't know what you're talking about when you're saying these out of context things. S Boogie said it's an American thing, not just black. What are you referring to? Things that I was referring to are not just, they are not American things. They are much more prevalent in the black community. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other communities, but it's much more prevalent in the black community. Sid said, can we talk? Too much to type. No, we can't talk. And again, the challenge for all of you in the comments is to make your point compendiously in text. That's the whole point. I mean, you can talk, you can start your own live stream, but you're not coming on my live if that's what you're asking. J.I. said, but yoga, if the rifles come out and dictate to you what the hell to do in this country, get yours. I don't know what you're talking about. I need context here. What are y'all? I'm not understanding some of these comments. Zay said, I was disappointed when she brought them out. Try too hard, SMH. Well, it got fans excited. The problem is not that a Beyonce or Cardi B doesn't get fans excited, but the people who got excited about that were already going to vote for Kamala anyway. So it didn't do anything. She just spent money for nothing. Not if the goal was to win votes, she didn't do anything. If the goal was to get people excited, she did something, but the people she got excited were already on her side. So it didn't do anything different. The concept, the general concept of using celebrities is that it will get more people to come vote than otherwise would have voted. But I don't think celebrities do that. I don't think they have that power. All it does is get people who are already going to vote for the same candidate to vote for that candidate anyway. So you're using that money for kind of no reason. Sure, you said an attention grabber. Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. Yeah, let's get the 10K likes. We already there. We at 12.9K. Thank you, Brittany. Let's see if we can get to 15 now. Clarity Cowgirl said, my vote doesn't get cast based on an entertainer. Well, I would think Clarity Cowgirl, just to be fair, I think almost every single voter would say that. I don't think there's any voter who would say, I wasn't going to vote at all, or I was going to vote for Trump, but because Beyonce said so, I voted for Kamala. I don't think anybody would admit to that. So what you're saying, I get it. I don't think anybody would say the opposite of that. I think everybody would say that their vote is based on their own logical thinking, even though most human beings do not make decisions logically, but everybody would claim that they do. So I get your point, but I don't think anybody would say anything different than what you just said. NYC said Megan Thee Stallion was an insult. Not to the Megan Thee Stallion fans. To her fans, it wasn't an insult. It was only an insult to people who don't like Megan Thee Stallion or weren't going to vote for Kamala anyway. Or maybe some skeptical Democratic voters. Maybe some. Cause you think said there's a difference. Someone who believes in the message doesn't get paid. Like who? Give me an example. So I would say somebody like actually it's hard to say that actually, because you think you know me who made this comment. You said someone who believes in the message doesn't get paid. The thing is, people can get paid in more than one way. The same way that Oprah Winfrey, after she did the Kamala interview, they asked her, because the story came out allegedly that Oprah got paid like $1 million to do that interview. Then someone asked Oprah, I think it was TMZ, ran up on Oprah and said, did you get paid $1 million? And Oprah said, I did not get paid $1 million. But then when people went and did dug into the details, what they found was Oprah's company got paid $1 million. So was Oprah telling the truth that she didn't get paid $1 million? Technically, yes. But was she really telling the truth? No, she was kind of lying by omission. So her company got paid $1 million. Does that count as getting paid $1 million? It's like if I send you an invoice and it's on my company letterhead and it says pay our company, my company, $1 million, and you know that's my company, and I say, well, nobody paid me anything. I didn't get paid any money yesterday. Am I telling you the truth or am I lying? Y'all tell me. Is that the truth or is it lying? Just put truth or lying in the comments. What do you think? If you pay my company $1 million and you know it's my company and I'm the one who sent you the invoice and then you pay it and I say nobody paid me anything, am I telling you the truth or am I lying? So I believe Oprah was lying by omission. She's using word games and playing. And that's the kind of stuff people can find that out. Now, when Obama first ran, you might not be able to find that out. Nowadays in 2024, people are finding out the truth in like 5 minutes because you got all these people on the internet basically are investigators. So again, any of you ever becomes very, very famous, are they going to dig into all your shit? Right? Whatever you got, they're going to find out about it, or they'll claim things that might not even be true, but people are going to be all in your shit when you're known. So you can't lie to people anymore. It'd be better if you just don't answer the question. Oprah should have just said no comment. Then people would have assumed that they did, but you can't lie to people. People are going to point out the lie. It's too easy to figure it out these days. Crystal said, include that they are paid millions. No, some of them are paid millions, not all of them. And at the same time, you take somebody like LeBron James. So LeBron James gets paid from other things that he does, And some of those things that have nothing to do with Kamala directly may have something to do with the Democratic Party. So if they say, hey, LeBron, if anybody asks you about the election, you just got to support Kamala, not because Kamala paid him directly, but because of his other business interests might include, hey, you got to stay on this side. And that may be explicit or may be implicit. So when someone says they didn't get paid, yes, they are factually saying what's correct, but are they actually telling you the truth? There's a different thing. Brittany said, Black culture has been hijacked, is now morally bankrupt. It's sad. I can't relate. Yeah, I understand. But it depends on also what you refer to as Black culture, because different people have different perspectives on what that means. Cause you thinks that anyone who gets paid for support isn't a real supporter. I would challenge that. Cause you think. I don't think so. I could be a supporter, but if you're going to pay me to support, then I'll take the money. If I support a cause and you're going to pay me to support the cause, then I'll take this free money. I was going to support it anyway, but why not collect the check at the same time? Why not? I'll take the check. User said, you are very controversial. I don't think so. What makes me controversial? Let's see. Session said, the truth is always controversial. The truth is only controversial to people who don't want to hear the truth. For people who want to hear the truth, what does it say? The truth shall make you free. Growing up in the 80s, hip hop had many political messages. Yes, it did. Floyd at the Grill. Hip hop used to be educational. If you listen to hip hop back in the 80s, it was educational, a lot of it. Then it flipped into being more entertainment based. J. Art said his cabinet picks nullify everything you are saying. How so? Sugar says the subconscious programming in music. Yes, the subconscious and is conscious too. It's explicit. I mean, that's why it literally says explicit material. They're letting you know exactly what they're telling you. Call said, if someone is successful, do what they did and not what they say. Generally, I agree with that. Anyone who does not accept the truth is controversial. Well, as long as you actually are giving them the truth. Sometimes people call something the truth is not the truth. Brittany said, I school my kids. Yes. Let's see. Okay. So all of you agree that what Oprah did was kind of she was lying by omission is what she was doing. She was playing with words to deceive people. Floyd said, every culture glorifies criminal activity. Well, what culture are these that you're bringing up? It's much more prevalent, as I said, in the Black community. These other cultures you're bringing up, the amount of impact that it has in certain cultures is not nearly as close to as much as it has in the Black community, what I'm bringing up. Live Free said, we are only as loyal as to what our options are. What are you referring to? S. Boogie said, Black intellect happens through art as well. Okay. Any of the people that I brought up, are they really giving you intellect? I don't think so. They're giving you entertainment. Is Megan Thee Stallion giving you intellect? Is Cardi B giving you intellect? I think Jay-Z can give you a little bit. I think he has some to offer, and he's done business things as well. But Jay-Z didn't say anything this time around. He was quiet. It depends on what type of art we're talking and who we're talking about. Because, again, Cardi B is art the same way that Lauryn Hill is art. Which one would you rather have a conversation with? So, again, you all got to be careful with your language here, because y'all say things that can be interpreted in more than one way. But I don't think many of you understand that. That's why I'm pointing these things out. Like, yes, what you said can be true, but it also can be false. So I appreciate that, Sugar. S. Boogie said, Black intellect is prevalent in our community in various ways. We are not a monolith. I didn't say that we were. That's a kind of a hollow statement, S. Boogie. Give me some context as to what you're referring to. Let's see. He was being ridiculed, being something he wasn't. Who are you referring to? Who's he? So you all be careful with these pronouns. It'd be better if you give me proper nouns so I know who you're talking to. It's different because I don't know who that is, who you're talking about. Monica said, or working for the white man. I've heard that before. Yeah, they give you that one often. Monica, you got the #1 gifter badge. Congratulations. Thank you. Mikey said, I did 25 years in prison, and only reforming happened because I chose to be. I believe that. I believe that. I'll take your word for it. Rolando says, why African immigrants do better. Maybe a reason why. There may be a reason why. Let's see. All right. You got a question or comment? Go ahead and post it. Brittany, you see anything good? Go ahead and pin it and I'll address it. I guess that's because I am Prodigy said, I guess that's because MAGA are logical and objective. Well, I don't know. I think there are some people on both sides who are much more reactive and emotional, but I just find interesting that people hear me talking and I'm just trying to be logical and objective. And people say, well, you must be MAGA, conservative, Trump supporter. I've never had anyone accuse me of being a liberal. Never. So I think that just says a lot about the liberals, that trying to be logical and objective, just trying to be, whether I'm succeeding or not, no one ever accused me of being liberal. I think that says a lot about where the liberal movement or the Democrats are or the left or whatever you want to call it. Dawn Person said, what's the solution from your perspective? Education is our key. It's what's worked historically. Well, that's a good question, Dawn, but what do you mean when you say education? Again, so with these terms that a lot of you are throwing out there, they can mean more than one thing. What do you mean when you say education? Education can mean several different things. There are a lot of different schools. There are a lot of different teachers. There are a lot of different curriculums that can be taught. So I generally agree with the direction of your point, but it depends on what the education is, because you and I could both say we're giving education out, but we could be doing two different things with two different conversations, but we both think we're educated. So that's where it gets tricky. But directionally, I agree with you. And I believe it starts even further, even deeper, Dawn. It starts in the home. It starts in the home. If a child could be going to the worst school in town, but if they have a good home situation, that child will still become successful. So the education, if you're referring to school, I don't think that's the key. I think the key is what's happening in the house. If what's happening in the house is good, then even a trashy school will not undo that. And if what's happening in the house is bad, the best school in the world will not fix that. So it starts in the home with the parents. Vicky said, my son was wrongfully sentenced and convicted even after testimony. Oh, sorry to hear that. Did you have a good lawyer? Crystal said, entertainers paid millions for support. Yeah, some of them, not all of them. Some of them are paid millions for support. And yes, always follow the money. Correct. All right, a couple more questions, then we'll go. Paul said, it seems disingenuous or fake to get celebrities to talk for you. Well, I mean, it's called advertising. So if you consider that disingenuous or fake, then almost all the ads you see on TV are fake, because whether they're a celebrity or an actor, a lot of it is fake. But it works. It's influential. So we can't say it's disingenuous or fake if it's working on us. Paul, I would guarantee you that you bought a product or a service that was advertised to you by a person who didn't actually use the product or service. They were a paid actor or a paid celebrity, and it still influenced you to go buy it, or at least to pay attention to the message. So we can't knock it when we don't like it, but then ignore the fact that it's worked on us. So there's a reason why celebrities do commercials, because it works. There's a reason why the Foreman grill was the Foreman grill. All right, George Foreman did not make that grill. He just lent his name to it, and it sold more grills. We can't act like that doesn't work. It works. Someone said that's what made Michael Jordan a unicorn back then, no politics. That's one of the things, on top of the fact that he was pretty good at basketball. Brittany says cabinet picks are well thought out and they're already getting to work. Well, we'll see if they all make it through. I haven't talked about the cabinet picks in detail yet, because we want to see who actually makes it. They're going to attack every single one of them. So let's see after the smoke clears who's in, and then we'll talk about it. Jared says, you have great calmness for some of these comments to come over. LOL. I've been reading comments on the internet for 20 years. So there's nothing anybody can say in the comments that I haven't seen or heard before. So you learn over the years responding to comments. I've read, not responded to, but read like literally millions of comments. NYC said, you deliver concise and factual information without being controversial. It allows you to think. Well, thank you. All those expenses during campaign cost 30% to manage process. The 1.5 billion sent 450 million to them. All right, we'll take your word for that, Tommy. In my opinion, 30% off the top is the driver of that spending. All right, well, there were two sides, though. The other side didn't spend that much money. So someone said, how do I feel about the cabinet picks? I just answered that. We'll see who actually makes it into the cabinet, because right now you got people getting nominated, then they're getting attacked, and then they might drop out. So let's see who actually makes it. And when we're clear who's in, then I'll talk about it. So I guess we won't know until, but can he actually, I don't think anyone can get confirmed until what? I don't know when the actual vote is. So whenever that happens and we know who's in, then I'll talk about each person, or at least if I want to talk about them, I'll talk about them. Someone said, why don't you talk about the other guy, deceitful way, instead of blasting her? You are one-sided, please. This is Jean Marie Jacquez. What about him? What should I say about him? He won the election. So when you win, people tend to overlook anything you did. And when you lose, people tend to dissect everything that went wrong. That's life. Jean-Marie, I mean, is it not? What do you think? When somebody wins, people tend to overlook all the negative things they could say about it because you won. And if you lose, people dissect every single piece of you and they talk about it even more. Such is life. If Trump had lost, then I might talk about that. But I'm not talking about her deceitful. And I didn't even blast her. If you think this is blasting her, you shouldn't have seen the lives I did before the election. Jean-Marie, I did entire lives on both candidates. I did lives on Kamala. I did lives on Trump. I did 2 hours on Kamala, why she was going to win. I actually did 2 hours on why she was going to win. And I put the clips on YouTube and people start leaving comments the day after the election. LOL, you were wrong. And I had to explain to people I did both sides. I argued both sides. But now there isn't both sides. There's only one side because only one person won. So what you want me to do? What do you want me to do, Jean-Marie? Tell me what I haven't said positive about Kamala or what negative should I say about Trump. Let me see what you got and I'll tell you where I've already talked about it. Guarantee you I already have. Granny said, love your content. Thank you, Granny. Monica said, I need one of your books. Go to the link in my bio on TikTok. Black Vegan, thank you for the cowboy hat there. Monica, the link on my TikTok, I changed it to this book right here called The Third Day. You can start with that book right there. It's my most popular book right now. So there you can start there. Black Vegan MAGA, thank you for the hat and mustache. So let's see. All right, so I was waiting for that person, Jean-Marie, who said I didn't talk about Trump negatively enough. Tell me what I didn't say about him. And I'll see if you have something legitimate worth talking about. And by the way, I changed the link in my bio on TikTok. So any of you who wants to get one of my books, get this book right here called The Third Day. They're the same book. This book right here called The Third Day is my most popular book right now. It's all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. That book is all about getting yourself in the performance mindset, the professional mindset. You just click the link in my bio. You can get this book right here. It takes you to our funnel. I have a sales funnel for the book. We offer you the book for free. We just ask that you cover the shipping. And then we offer you more books because I've written 35 books. So we offer you different bundles of books. So who reads just one book? Any of you who reads books, you don't read just one book. You read a bunch of books. So I'm going to offer you a bunch of books when you go through that funnel. So go to that link in my bio. It's the link in my bio right now on TikTok. So it used to be for my university, but I changed it to this right here. So click that link as soon as this live is over and you can get that book. So Tommy said, I love your content too. You're very clear and logical. Thank you. I like to think that I'm being clear and logical, but some people disagree. That's fine. But if you disagree, you got to tell me why you disagree. And you got to tell me what point I got wrong. If you disagree with me, you got to tell me what I got wrong. I'm open to hearing it. If you think I got something wrong, I want to hear it. What did I get wrong? All right. So speaking of next week, what should I talk about next week? What current event? My question to the people in the comments right now. What current event should I talk about next week? Is there something happening in news or just a general social topic? Criminal justice is not necessarily a current event, but it's something that people tend to talk about all the time. So what should I talk about? Any of you have a suggestion, put it in the comments right now. I got some things already written down. I got plenty of content, but if there's something that I haven't been thinking about or something that I missed, if any of you know something, just let me know. What should I talk about in the future? And I will talk about it. And now I'm just looking at my messages. Somebody messaged me. Okay, so any topic that any of you think is a buzzing subject and current events that I should talk about, if y'all don't have anything, it's okay. I'll come up with it. This is literally my job is to come up with the content. But if y'all have something that I didn't think about, then I'm open to it. Or if I hear a bunch of you talking about the same thing, then I'll say, all right, let's talk about that. So, for example, I did a live where I talked about Black Lives Matter like a week or two ago because I talked about them a long time ago, but I noticed that many of you want to hear what I had to say. So I did that one. So if you offer something, I probably already have the material. You just haven't heard me talk about it, but I will. But I got plenty of material. Don't worry. I have, just to give y'all background on myself, I got like 3,000 pieces of content like this one that I can extrapolate to be alive. I could do it in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours if I want to. I have a show that comes out every single day. It's called Work on Your Game. It's on Apple and Spotify. Y'all can find it there. Oh, someone asked about the healthcare companies being targeted. Actually, that's a good question. I'm going to do that then. All right, let me do that. I'm going to write that one down because I wasn't planning on talking about that, but I have seen people talking about that. So the healthcare, let's just call healthcare companies targeting. I'll just put that as a placeholder here. And then later on, I'll flesh out some notes for that. So unless something happens over the weekend that takes its place, I will talk about that. And from an angle that maybe you wouldn't expect. So I will talk about that. Yes. And what else was there? I appreciate that, Tommy. What is my inspiration to write books? Well, you see this live stream, when this is over, most people are not going to go back and watch the whole thing or hear anything that I said. But books have a longer shelf life, literally and metaphorically, than content. Like this content is only good for as long as I'm doing it. Videos tend to get old. Look at your TikTok feed. It just goes and goes and goes. But books, they last longer. So a book that got written 100 years ago can still be relevant, but content that came out 10 years ago is looked at as quote unquote old. So that's one thing. The most important material, Granny, is usually written down on paper. Contracts are on paper. A birth certificate is on paper. If the IRS needs to reach you, it's on paper. They usually, when something important needs to be communicated, it's written down. So a book, you can take everything I said in this live stream, and if I wrote it down, put it into a book, that material will last longer than this live stream will last. It just has longer staying power. So that's one reason why I write books. And also writing books is a credibility piece. If someone tells you they got a YouTube channel and then someone else tells you that they've written books, which one communicates more credibility? Usually the book. I don't know why that is, but it's true. Books just have more credibility than the spoken word or a video. And if you think about it, it is a thing. And it's harder to write a book than it is to make a video. So I'd rather do something that most people wouldn't do or couldn't do than something that anybody can do, even though I do both. It's harder to write a book and actually write it and finish it and put it out and actually have the book literally in your hand. It's much easier to do a TikTok video than it is to write a book. So while I will do TikTok videos, writing books creates a separation between me and people who won't write books. And I got a bunch of books coming that I haven't even put out yet. Trust me, we got a lot coming. So as long as I'm, knock on wood, as long as I'm allowed to do it. Brittany said, the fact that our currency is not backed by gold and we are moving in that direction. Yeah, that's an interesting one. May get to that. All right, everybody, I got to go to the bathroom. It's 9:50. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. I will be on these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. That's when I do these lives. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern is when I do these lives. Okay, so any of you who wants to, you like this one, you want to hear more, just follow me on whatever app you're on. Make sure you follow me in another place. So if you're on TikTok, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube right now, too. So YouTube's over here. LinkedIn, Rumble, X, and Facebook are over here. Instagram's right here, and TikTok's here. So I'm actually live in multiple places. I'm looking at TikTok because I'm reading you all's comments right now, but I'm live in a bunch of places at once. Follow me on more than one platform because anything can happen in any one of these platforms. So make sure you follow me in more than one place just in case something happens so you can catch me in other places. You want to get one of my books, start with this book called The Third Day. I changed the link in my bio on TikTok to this link. So you can get this book right now. Just go to that link. We're going to offer you the book for free. We just ask that you cover the shipping. We're going to offer you more books in the funnel. It's a sales funnel. So after you get the first one, we're going to offer you more. You don't have to take them. You can say yes or no. We're going to offer you more, but we're going to offer you stuff right there in that sales funnel. Just go to that link that's in my bio is thirddaybook.com. By the way, for those of you on other apps, thirddaybook.com is where you can get that book. So let me see what else, anything else I got to respond to. Yes, appreciate all of you who been here. Jeannie Johnson, good to see you. Chris, appreciate you as well. Thank you, Granny, for the question. And Granny, I appreciate you. And all right, everybody, we're wrapping this one up. Everybody have a great Friday, great weekend. I'll see you all Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern. We out of here. Thanks over there on YouTube. TJ, I see you in the comments. Appreciate you. All right, see y'all Monday.